Welcome into an all-new episode of Panthers on Tap. I'm Curtis Rauen, joined by Bryson, Karbley, Ricky Raines. Coming to you guys on a Wednesday night. We got the band back together this week. Bryson, it's good to see you. Ricky, good to see you guys as well. We got a lot to talk about. Combine finally off to a quick start with all the interviews, and we'll start to see some underwear Olympics here shortly. But first, guys, how are we doing tonight? Bryson, how you feeling better?
Yeah, much better, man. A week or two removed from the flu, and it was a beast. I'm sorry that you're not feeling great, Curtis, but it seems like it's going around to everyone. And I'm glad to be alive and make it past it. But excited to talk football tonight and get into some of this new information that's come out, surrounding the Panthers.
Ricky, how are you? You might want to throw that hat away if I can read that right. It looks like Maryland.
Yeah, hey, look, man, I'm a Panthers fan, I'm a Hornets fan, and I'm a Maryland fan. Losing doesn't hurt me anymore, Curtis. I've taken that power away from it. Terps fought like hell tonight, lost on a half-court buzzer beater against Michigan State. So, yeah, hurt a little bit, but I had already cracked my first IPA of the night. And I knew I was coming to see you guys. So I'm okay, man. Good to see you guys, and always good to be seen.
Well, speaking of that, Ricky, you're talking about it. What's on tap tonight, gentlemen? I got the Ricky special here. It's a bunch of tea and honey, and yeah, it tastes like shit, but you know what? It's supposed to help, so I'll deal with it.
It's supposed to have some sort of bourbon or whiskey in there to make that a hot toddy, and that'll really clear up the sinuses, man.
What do you guys got on tap?
I'll start since I already said that I had some beer. I'll tell you what it is that I've started on. This one is from Sycamore, a local brewery here in Charlotte. It's called Nummy Gummy. It's an IPA. Very nice little beer. I'm enjoying that one. And then one that I got specifically for the episode, man, because, the Combine almost signals like this beginning of the new year again, right? Like we're about to get into free agency and all of that. So this is from Burial Brewery in Asheville. This is another IPA. It's dry hopped, and it is called End of Plagues, because I think this is when we put all that horse shit in the rear view and we start getting to real business in Carolina.
Bryson? I like that. Yeah, I like that, and I'm hopeful for the same, Ricky. I just have one beer tonight. It is a Cream de la Orange from Bull City Cider Works. It is an orange cream cider. Good. Yeah, it's really good. It's awesome. I've had a couple of them already. Not tonight, but a couple of them from a six-pack. And 6%. It's a really good beer.
I love that like creamsicle type of flavor profile, man. Those things are always a jam.
Elite.
Yeah,
flavor.
they have some good. They have a good lineup of ciders there. I just went like a week or two ago actually and I can't remember what they had. The berry one was out, but a lot of their ciders are pretty good. We got a lot to talk about tonight. Before we get into it, I just want to mention to folks, we do have a super chat on YouTube. Take advantage of that little money icon on the YouTube channel. We would appreciate it. Please subscribe if you don't already. There we go. Our first comment from the chat. Yo, what's up, everybody? Bloody, nice to see you. Do not be afraid to answer or ask us questions throughout. We would appreciate it. And we will get this show on the road. Since the last time we talked, it's been a couple weeks. Let's start off with Andy Dalton here, signing the 2-year deal. Just wanted to get your guys' initial thoughts on this. I saw a little bit of fireworks online when this came out with just a couple people, a regular of the show and JJ Hardy, the Bryce Young hater. So what do you guys think about Andy Dalton? I'm going to get flack for that one. What do you guys think about Andy Dalton coming back to Carolina?
Yeah, I already see the Red Rocket in the chat. It's the Red Rifle guys. The Red Rocket means something completely different. But
hey, that's Greg's buddy. That's Greg's buddy from Florida, Michael Cuddy.
Oh, okay.
Welcome.
Okay.
Maybe Andy likes being called the Red Rocket. Do we know for sure that he doesn't?
Yeah. And Zach's in here too. He's a regular, but glad to see him in here. Yeah, I mean, with Andy Dalton back in Carolina, I think it was a pretty predictable move for the Panthers. Seems like Bryce Young's gotten pretty comfortable with him in regards to him being his backup. I know going through last season there was some arguments about who should start, and then that was all calm by the end of the year. We were all on the same page throughout the whole entire year. But yeah, I think that they've probably grown close together, and Andy Dalton's more of like a mentor for Bryce Young. Both very spiritual, religious, and Dave Canales is as well. So I think they just have a good relationship bringing him back. I mean, he's a serviceable backup. He's shown that he can win in like spot starts and games, and I think it's just more of a comfort thing than anything else for that quarterback room. So I didn't have any issue with it at all, bringing him back, and just as long as we have the people that stop with the start Andy Dalton train, that should be in the contract. Like nobody online can say it. Like, but I think we're at the point finally in our Panthers fandom that there's going to be very, 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 very few people that are calling for Andy Dalton over Bryce Young at this point. So, like I said, just excited to see him back based on a comfort level for that quarterback room and this team in general.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with it, man. Like, but I'm also not sitting there saying what a great move, right? Like, it doesn't move the needle much for me either way, to be completely honest. The kick or the pushback that I saw from Andy Dalton, I kind of agree with to an extent, is just this whole thing about like, if this staff is such a great developmental staff, right? There are quarterbacks out there that are available in free agency that you could bring in as a backup quarterback. And I'm not saying it's competition to Bryce Young, because there is no competition. Bryce Young has won the starting job as the quarterback for the Carolina Panthers. He's proven that he is the future of the franchise at the position, in my opinion, at least. And I think in a lot of opinions league wide. But why not take that chance of revitalizing another career or taking a prospect that never reached their potential? Why not develop him behind Bryce Young, right? And I'm not saying you have to put a whole bunch of effort and emphasis into that player over your starting quarterback. That's a silly thing to say. But like a Trey Lance or somebody like that, I'm not saying that they're going to be better than Andy Dalton would be in a spot start, but let's also clear up that just a tiny bit. Andy Dalton won a game as the starter. Game, right? Like, he lost a whole lot of other games, and he looked very bad in doing so in some of those games. So, like, while I appreciate the relationship aspect of it, and I do agree with that 1000% with what Bryson was saying, I think that's a critical component to why he's back. The continuity, the comfortability, all of those things, kind of that ear to bend when you're going through something and trying to figure it out, whether it's personal or professional. I like that. And Andy seems to be here for the right reasons with Bryce as well. So I don't care about it. It doesn't hurt my feelings. It also doesn't give me the warm and fuzzies. It's a backup quarterback that hopefully we don't talk about after talking about him right now.
My reaction to everything, it's a backup quarterback. We need Andy Dalton to come in if Bryce Young goes down and can win you a game. We need a Chad Henne, and that's what Andy Dalton is. And Ricky, I think you nailed it. Bryson, you mentioned it too. I think it's relationship with Bryce Young. That's important. I don't care about anything else with that. I don't care about trying to develop some guy. Develop some guy what? To then go trade him off? Like, we can do that. We can look into that. But I think we're overlooking this shit. Like, it's let's get a guy who, is going to be still, and I get it, he's a third-year quarterback, this Bryce Young, still a new mentor. We got to remember, this is technically really, or not technically, but, pretty much his second year in this new system. Let's keep a guy here that he's comfortable with, that he's grown with. They have a good relationship. There is no reason to try to change that up right now. And I think it's foolish. Like, we don't need to bring in Trey Lance. I don't think that's necessary.
Bring in Trey Lance. Do it.
Were we talking about Derek Anderson and bringing in a developmental guy when Cam Newton was there? I don't remember that. I don't remember that at all. So, like,
but what if they had? What if they had? And what if they got a third-round pick for the guy they developed and drafted a fucking wide receiver?
If it ain't broke, don't fix it. We don't need to be. JJ likes to stir stuff up. That's what he's been liking to do. If you've been reading his stuff, so and I don't know if he has much faith in Bryce. I'll be honest with you. I need to get off attacking him, but
what are you doing here?
I don't think this is necessary whatsoever. So I think this was a fine deal. It was cheap. It didn't cost a lot. And this guy, he's a spot starter. If you need him to go in, he can go in and depending on the team can, get the job done. I don't think we need to move anywhere beyond that, honestly. So that's kind of where I'm at with it.
Shout out Carlo in here, by the way, host of the pregame podcast over there. So he's got a drink in hand. Cheers, fellas. Cheers to Carlo.
More, what drink do you got? Let us know in the chat. I'm curious.
Yeah, that's a good question.
I'm very curious.
No one ever tells us what they're drinking, right?
It's
just the three of us sitting here blabbering about how drunk we're going to get doing this show. And no one ever tells us that they're drinking with us, man.
Here I'm over here drinking toilet water, and they can't tell us what the hell they got in their midst. Come on.
If somebody wasn't here at the beginning of the show, you don't know if he's referring to another kind of mountain wine that he's drinking tonight, or if it's the tea that he's drinking because he's not feeling well. It's tea, guys. Oh, he's got some Whistle Pig on the rocks. I like that. Are you drinking the rye or the bourbon, Carlo?
And Zach, while we're waiting, Zach Griffin, Coors Light. What a shame. I mean, that's a shame.
Stuff.
That's a shame to like beer.
That's all right, man. Maybe he's in it for the long haul. I don't blame him. Longevity. C3 Ant is in here. What up, Ant?
Let's go to this next question here. Enough about our backup quarterback because I think people spend way too much time on that. So Shaq Thompson, end of an era. Guy's been around for a decade, I believe. And he got to be a part of the Luke Kuechly, Thomas Davis era. He's also part of this shit show era, and hopefully we're on the way up now. So he's been through it all here in Carolina. But overall thoughts on Shaq Thompson leaving, and what will you miss most about him on this roster? And Bryson, I'll start with you.
Honestly, I was surprised / a little hurt at this move. I know I'm probably in the minority with that, but like you mentioned, Curtis, he's been through so much. He's taken pay cuts to stay on the team. He's been a leader on that defense for better or worse for a while now, and he's kind of like the last connection that we have to that Luke Kuechly, Thomas Davis era. So when he was healthy on the field, he was playing at a high level before his most recent injury. So I thought, maybe taking another team-friendly deal, keeping him around. We don't have a whole lot of depth at that position to begin with. So hopefully this is more like he's going to go out and see what's out there and then maybe come back. I don't know what the situation is exactly, but yeah, I mean, I figured they'd keep him around based off of, like we talked about earlier with Dalton, relationships. Seems like he's a extremely popular, locker room guy. And his teammates in Carolina were kind of pulling for him to return healthy and get back on the field. And he is an emotional leader. When he was healthy and on the field, he was making plays in the backfield, really kind of bringing the juice to the defense. So that's going to be missed. He's just been the quintessential keep pounding Panthers player, since coming here. And unfortunately, looks like it's coming to an end. But, that's just me being a sad guy with trying to hold on to players that, maybe they are making the right decision moving on too early instead of too late, like Bill Belichick was famous for doing with players in New England. So maybe it's a good decision, but just as a fan of his and a fan of the Panthers, it was sad to see.
Before Ricky jumps in here, I'm going to go quick, switch it up a little bit. Shaq was a guy that I've always liked. I mean, I bought his jersey very early on when he was with Carolina and really have been a fan ever since, and was hoping for him to see the success of sticking around, because he really stuck through some of the dark times in Carolina, took some pay cuts even to stick around this past year. I don't know if you guys saw the Scott Fitterer little snippet that someone posted. I think it was yesterday or the day before, of just like what Shaq did last offseason to come back. Prior to this past season, coming back and just sticking it out with this team. And he's always stood by, like, I want to retire a Panther. So I respect the hell out of him for that. He's been a huge leader in the locker room. I'm glad Trevin Wallace got a little bit of that leadership this past year, even though he was sidelined, which I think will help him out in his future. And I wish him nothing but the best, man. He gave Carolina everything. I do think it was time, though, to cut the ties. We talked about that a couple weeks back, and I just think, I was actually kind of shocked. I don't know if it was Canales or Morgan who mentioned it this week. They're like, we're going to miss him, but, he did have 2 season-ending injuries these past couple seasons, which I was honestly shocked they mentioned. But, it's honesty. That's the reality. He wasn't, on the field, and, I wish him nothing but the best in his next venture, and I'm sure he'll come back better than ever. So,
yeah, it's honesty, right? But it's also the reason, like the leadership and the intangibles that Shaq brings to the locker room and to the field. Those aren't the reasons why you don't want him to stay with Carolina. Those are the only reasons you want him to stay. And I'm not trying to be mean about that, but he has missed 2 years. He played, a game and a half, 2 games last season? And the same thing before that. Like, I just think that you drafted Trevin Wallace, you signed Josie Jewell, and you're still in the market for bringing speed and explosiveness and disruption from that position. And if you keep Shaq, where are you going to do with him? You're going to start him, right? And so then Trevin isn't getting playing time in his second year, and you have no idea what he is. You have no idea what he could turn into. You got to take the training wheels off, and you got to try to ride the bike with Trevin. So I think that having Josie there, who can wear the green dot during the season, let Trevin kind of acclimate again to a full season as a starter. If that's the plan, then yeah, that's what you got to do there. And Shaq, if he wants to keep playing, man, then giving him the free range to go and pick his own place. It's a thing that they're doing out of respect for him. I love Shaq, the player, love what he means to Carolina Panthers. Very sad to see him go from a sentimental standpoint. From a football standpoint, it makes a world of sense to me.
Amen. Well said. Let's move on to Xavier Legette. Man, we've had conversations about this guy's wrist and the drops. I remember we went back and forth through the year about talking about this. So no wrist surgery. Breaking news if you have been hiding under a rock. Legette had foot surgery, not wrist surgery. It sounds like there's no timetable on a return. I know they asked about OTAs. That's still kind of up in the air. I don't like this at all, gentlemen. I don't like this at all. And I hate to say this, but I mentioned this before the season started, that I had concerns about this guy's durability. And we are sitting here who, I don't know if the fault to his own, but there was a lot of people that blamed his drops on his wrist injury. He doesn't get the surgery. They said the team looked it over and it didn't need surgery. If we're sitting here in week 5 of next year dealing with the same issues, and he's mentioning a wrist injury he had both in college and now in the NFL, I'm going to be pissed off as all get up, because you traded up in the first round to get this guy. Had an up and down season, flashed at times, and you're really hoping this guy has a big leap in his second year, and now he's coming off of a foot surgery. I don't like this at all. I don't. I hate every bit of it. I really hope it's something minor. But man, it's a lot of uncertainty in a room that's already uncertain in my point of view.
Yeah, I'm right there with you, man. I wasn't as concerned to start the year. I wasn't on your level of worry in regards to Xavier Legette's injuries, but I'm there now. This is like a break. Like when they said he had foot surgery, I was like, when did he injure his foot? Like I had no idea. I don't think really anyone did. So it's concerning that he didn't go ahead and proceed with the wrist surgery. I know Dan Morgan mentioned that his own doctors and the team doctors looked at it and said that it didn't need surgery, but this is an injury that was lagging all year long, and if there's any chance that it can be lingering into next season, like you mentioned, Curtis, like why not just get the surgery? If you're already getting foot surgery, go ahead and get the wrist surgery too, and knock them both out. But I'm not a medical professional, so I guess if you got it cleared through doctors, then so be it. But yeah, I mean, the foot's concerning. It's been injury after injury with Xavier so far, and he's been here for less than a year. So hopefully he comes into OTAs and training camp healthy and is ready to go, and we can put this all in the past. But so far, it's been an area of concern, to say the least. And I hope for the best moving forward, but it's not looking bright at this point in regards to the injury proneness of our first-round wide receiver from last year.
I think that Carlo brings up a decent point when we talk about the injuries and, how is it affecting him. He played through whatever ailments he had for the most part last season, right? Like, he didn't miss a ton of time. Now, if we want to evaluate how much did those injuries impact his performance, somebody's going to have to tell us that, because we didn't know about this foot injury. We don't know when it occurred. The wrist thing is more perplexing to me. And it's perplexing to me because Xavier Legette himself said that this was a wrist injury that he re-aggravated in the season, that he had been dealing with since 2021, and that he had never gotten surgery on, and that he probably would get that taken care of in the offseason. The wording of that, and that's straight from Xavier Legette speaking to Joe Person in the locker room. That is not me interpreting that in a different way. That is me literally telling you exactly what Xavier Legette himself said. For me, if they deemed that that wasn't an injury that needed surgery, that's okay. Not all injuries need surgery, man. I'm not going to sit here and ring an alarm about it, but it's weird that it was brought up that way then. It is strange that he volunteered that information if it wasn't even remotely accurate. I think that part of that could be frustration with how he was playing internally, and that he knew he wasn't 100%, and not that he over embellished the injury, because I don't know that, right? But if you are going to try to read between what someone is saying, maybe it was a confidence and frustration thing, and he was like, well, look, dude, I'm also not 100%. I've got these issues going on, so let's all just chill out for a second. Maybe that's what he was saying. Maybe it was a tough day at the office for him. But it can't be a tough day at the office next year with the wrist again. That's what I'll say about that. If this is something that's going to continue to get re-aggravated and it has an impact on his play, and they didn't take care of it at the first available time to take care of it, then it's bad business. It's malpractice, right? You're supposed to go in and do what you need to do to get your guy out there to play, and this is the offseason. This is where it doesn't affect game time. I am a big proponent of, if it is something that requires surgery, get it done immediately. If it's not, cool, man, because you never want to go under the knife. So I'm not going to be presumptuous about that. XL has work to do in his sophomore season. I hope that he recovers absolutely perfectly from this foot injury, because that also is a little bit worrisome too when you talk about a big, heavier, stronger, power-based receiver making cuts and stops on a dime with a foot injury like that. It's just a little bit worrisome. It doesn't mean I'm out on X. I love him. And if there's one thing that Xavier Legette has proven already within his small tenure in the NFL, the dude is a workhorse. He will get out there. He will grind. He will put in the time and the effort. I'm going to wait until I see the results. But yeah, a little bit worrisome for me.
Well, my concern too, and I really hope when they say, we spoke to doctors and everything, and, they gave us all clear. I hope it's not one of those things where, he's stubborn and he's just, I'm good. Let's go. Because I get that mentality from him. He did that. He missed mandatory minicamp, and 2 weeks later, he's running 20 miles an hour on treadmills with Deebo Samuel when he probably shouldn't have been. So that part concerns me with him. So I hope this came from the doctors and from the Panthers doctors, team doctors, whoever it was. I hope it came from a medical professional. It wasn't him just saying, no, I can play through this type thing, because that's where I have issues. Speaking of injuries, let's talk about another guy who saw maybe a game and a half on the field this past season, the second-round draft pick for Carolina, Jonathan Brooks. Dan Morgan said on Tuesday there's no timetable on a return. Do you guys expect this guy to see the field at all in 2025?
No.
I
mean, what he tore it in, was it November? And it took.
No, it's December, right?
Okay, December, and the one prior to that, it took over a year almost to recover. Yeah. So I mean, it's a long shot for him to return. This fucking sucks, man. This sucks because he was so promising. We all loved him. I can't wait to see him on the field again. We saw what he brings in just a short amount of time that we did. We did see him. And unfortunately, it's not looking promising for next season. And you coming off back-to-back ACL tears is concerning. How much is he going to trust it? How much, there's so much mental and physical areas of concern with back-to-back ACL tears. We see players come back from them, but it's not super common. Like Thomas Davis was kind of a rarity, and I'm hoping he's able to bounce back and be his self that he was at Texas and of the little bit that we saw from him this season. But damn, this sucks.
Didn't Barkley tear his ACL twice?
I'm not certain on that.
Did he tear it at Penn State?
I thought he tore it twice in New York. Maybe I'm
not certain.
That's a good question. I don't know. I don't know that he did twice. Did he?
I'm gonna look it up while you guys keep.
Yeah, look it up. So I agree 1,000% with what Bryson just said as the overall feeling on this. It sucks, dude. Like there's not a whole lot of analysis to give on this because the dude played 35 snaps, something in that range, right? There's just not a lot we could talk about like what he would do if he was healthy. But I'll put it this way, right? Everyone is upset because they think that we drafted a running back a year too early and that we should have drafted a running back in this class, right? We should have waited. We should have used that pick on somebody else. Hindsight is a clever little bitch, right? It will have you thinking that you can see the future by looking in the past. That's cool, man. Like I am all for doing that if you want to run on that hamster wheel. But what I will tell you is this running back class, as stacked as it is and as much as everybody loves it, Jonathan Brooks is going off of my personal grades that I have, and I have all of my numerical grades from last season and from seasons prior. Jonathan Brooks would have graded as my number 4 running back in this class. And we're talking about a class where people are saying that 1 to 3 could potentially go in the first round of the NFL draft this year. That's kind of madness compared to what other people have talked about in past seasons with running back groups, right? He is not a bad running back, dude. This is a terrific running back prospect. I understand why they took that gamble and trying to bring him here. You hear the things they're talking about of wanting touchdown scores and all these kinds of things that they're saying they want dynamic mismatches and playmakers. Jonathan Brooks was that. He is a terrific complementary piece to Chuba. They also didn't know how Chuba was going to work out this past season. They didn't know that. Chuba took a massive step forward this season. Now, he looked good at the end of 2023, but that wasn't Chuba's like coming out party necessarily. That was just him progressing. This season was his coming out party. I don't think there's anything wrong with adding to a strength and making it stronger, especially when you pay $100 million to fortify an interior offensive line to run the ball. Like, I'm not mad at it. I am super bummed for Jonathan Brooks. I'm looking forward to his return, but they got to really consider a running back in this class as well, because that room is empty right now, and you got to get somebody in there.
So just on the Barkley stuff, it was a high ankle sprain. That's what I was getting jacked up. So he had a high ankle sprain in 2019, and then in 2020, he tore his MCL and ACL. So that's what it was. He missed a couple games with the high ankle sprain.
There you go.
But, I mean, that might be a guy he wants to talk to. Coming off like an ACL in the league, he's come back better than ever, playing his best ball right now. I feel like that might be a guy he'd want to reach out to and just, get his take on what he did. And because I know a lot of people have talked about, like, it's getting past the fear of this happening again. And it's already happened twice now. So it's going to just compound on him. So I think the mental aspect is the biggest thing. Hindsight's 2020. I mean, I loved Jonathan Brooks last year. Could you argue maybe they should have looked ahead and said, hey, look at this running back coming out next year. Like, this looks like a very talented class. Maybe we pump the brakes a little bit. But like you said, the Hubbard thing, it was up in the air. You didn't know what you were getting.
Not only that, Curtis, but like, how are you guaranteeing you're getting that running back that you're circling a year ahead of time? How are you guaranteeing that you're going to get dibs on him in the draft?
But you're hoping you at least get one of them. Yeah,
that's right. And they were hoping that they would get a shot at Jonathan Brooks, I think. and that they would get him earlier than his value because of the injury. Like, so it is all, this is what the NFL draft is. It's my entire like gripe with the idea of we should keep our 3rd round pick instead of going after DK Metcalf. Because what if we drafted a guy who turned into the next DK Metcalf? Or hear me out, friends, go get DK Metcalf. Like, NFL proven players are the commodity. Draft picks are fun for fans. NFL players are proven commodities. That's what it boils down to for me.
That's a good point. So yeah, we'll see. To answer my original question, I don't think he touches the field this year, and it's going to be 2026. And hopefully we have a hell of a back who's healthy then. Let's shift to the defensive side for a little bit here and talk about J.C. Horn. That was a big topic of conversation. Dan Morgan was asked that numerous times by both the national media and the local media. It sounds like they're hoping to get a deal done soon. I know Vashti put out on Twitter, I believe this week, that it could happen as soon as this week, possibly. Guys, thoughts on this? I think we all agree you need to lock this guy up. Any take on where you think the numbers are going to be? Do you think it's going to be close to Surtain's 4-year, $96 million? I'm sure it's going to be a little bit under that, but what are you guys' thoughts on J.C. Horn and that cornerback room?
Yeah, I don't care where it is, if it's close to that or if it's over it or if it's under it, if it's beside of it, if it's diagonal from it. Just get them signed, man. Curtis, you gripe all the time about the Carolina Panthers letting good players walk, and this is not one that you want to let walk. Yeah, he's had some injury concerns in his past, and I've been one of the biggest kind of detractors, or not detractors, one of the biggest like
hater.
Yeah, honestly, one of the biggest haters of his, and saying if he's not going to be on the field, then they might not pick up this 5th-year option. They might not extend him.
That's fair.
But he came out this season and played well, and it's a player that we all thought he could be if he was healthy, and he was, and he proved it. And he is the best player on that defense when Derek Brown isn't on the field, and he's a corner piece, a building block for this team moving forward. So you got to get him signed. I really don't care what the contract is. I mean, obviously, I don't want it to be some crazy like some Deshaun Watson contract that the Browns gave out or something like that. But
general rule of thumb: don't do anything that Deshaun Watson has or will do. Like nothing.
Yeah, or Justin Tucker for that matter.
Or Justin Tucker, man. Fuck.
But yeah, so I'm hoping it gets done soon. I really am, and that J.C. Horn, it seems like it is going to get done soon. It doesn't seem like there's any like hostility between the two. J.C. Horn has been pretty adamant and public about saying he wants to stay a Carolina Panther for the future because he sees what direction this team's heading in, and obviously the Panthers are interested in re-signing him. So I think it's more likely than not that it gets done, and hopefully it's soon.
This is a guy that plays the same position, and you talk about Pat Surtain, but I just put it in like a different like wording, maybe plays the position that the defensive player of the year plays. So if you want to talk about importance of the position to the game of football, that kind of highlights it, right? And that's beating out the edge rushers that create a bunch of turnovers and pressure and sacks and all the sexy stats, right? I think that when you talk about the money part, I'm with you, Bryson. I don't care if it's, Pat Surtain adjacent, if it's exceeding his, if it's below it. I do point out all this conversation about the NFL and Netflix buying out these TV networks. We see the cap going up again this year unexpectedly. It's not unexpected. Like these guys make billions and billions of dollars, man. They've got all this money. They want the product to be even better and more competitive and shit. They're going to keep on raising that thing. So with that in mind, the price that you pay JC and why I like what Vashti is insinuating, right? That, hey, I wouldn't be shocked if they worked to get this thing proactively done on an early tip. The price you pay today may not even be the same price you pay next Monday. It may not be the same price you pay in the middle of the season. Like this is one of those almost like currency exchange rates type deals. Like you got to look it up that morning to find out how much it is. And then you could check it at 3 p.m. that same afternoon and it's got a different rate. You go and you pay JC because Bryson hit the nail on the head, right? we wanted, as a fan base, as a collective fan base, we wanted him to be healthy to prove that he could be that guy. That was the only question, was his health and his durability. It wasn't a question of what he could do on the field. This dude is a dog. He's a terrific corner. I hope he gets more opportunity to play press. That also has a whole lot to do with their plan with the roster construction of this football team. But if he has it, dude, this is a guy that can transcend who your defensive coordinator is as well, which in my humble opinion could be valuable if Ejiro Evero is no longer here after this season, or even maybe through the season. So I am locking him up. I am making him a priority to this football team. You mentioned he's the best player on the field when Derek Brown's not on the field. I think there's a legitimate argument he's the best player on the field regardless of who is on that field for the defense.
Bryson said it off the top of his answer. Reward your best players. Reward your draft picks. It's something Scott Fitter failed to do. And Dan Morgan proved with Derek Brown that he's going to do it, and he's going to do it with this guy. I think this will be locked up, I would think, in the next 2 weeks or so. Without a doubt, he needs to be here for the long term for Carolina, and I do think he slides into that leadership role that Shaq Thompson just left. So, big JC Horn fan. I just want to quickly ask you guys this. Ricky, I'll start with you while we're talking corners, just specifically corners. I posed this poll a couple days ago, and I forgot to pull it up. I don't know the results of it. But how confident are you if the Panthers re-sign Mike Jackson of a quarterback room with J.C. Horn, Mike Jackson, and Chow Smith-Wade?
Like on a scale of 1 to 10?
A sale. I think I had it very confident, somewhat confident, not very confident, not confident at all. I think that's what I did in the poll.
Not very confident is what I would say, because I don't know what we saw last year that would make you feel very confident. And that's no offense, man. I think that Mike Jackson came in and did an exemplary job for the position that he was asked to handle, right? I think it is a little bit of a signal when you see that he is one of the more coveted cornerbacks in this free agency class. 12 months ago, that wouldn't have been remotely the case. We got him for a 7th round draft pick because Seattle didn't have plans for him. And that's the team that drafted him and had seen him and he'd had production with. That's no offense to Mike, but you cannot tell me that if we're not going to make extensive moves to the pass rush and get some sort of production out of our defensive front, that I'm supposed to feel comfortable about this defensive scheme with that depth being able to hold up. So not very confident for me.
Bryson?
Yeah, I'm the same as Ricky. I would say not very confident. Mike Jackson had some up and downs as a Carolina Panther. I would say overall played, probably a little bit better than expected. Like Ricky mentioned, that we traded a 7th round pick that was cut from the Seahawks for Mike Jackson. He came in and really saved Dan Morgan's ass in regards to the Dane Jackson signing that is no longer on our team. And played, I feel like, just the best he could. And, gave it his all. He brought an attitude to the field, and I just think that's an area that can be improved. He definitely had some times where we were like, okay, Mike, what are you doing? Let's figure this out. But he also made some plays here and there as well. And then Chow Smith-Wade is a little bit of a question mark for me too. I feel like he's had some ups and downs as a Panther in his first year, albeit he was a rookie. But I don't think Ricky's a very big fan of Chow Smith-Wade, and
hey, it's not that I don't like him, but look, let me clarify that, because it's not that I don't like Chow and think that Chow can't play in the NFL. Yeah. He's proven he can play, but again, dude, like, wasn't he our second option at nickel after Dane Jackson? And because Dane fizzled out so poorly that we let Chow take the reins, but also we're kind of like experimenting with him there because he was always outside at college. And I thought he was adequate, but like just being the best option for the Carolina Panthers, in my mind, doesn't necessarily mean that that's suitable to stand pat. That's all I'm saying. I like him.
So
come on, man.
Yeah. So Ricky hates Charles Smith-Wade. He does not want to see him.
Fair enough.
Ever.
Fair enough. Thank you. Remember, Bryson said it himself. He's not a medical professional. He can't even fucking say that.
So I'm with Ricky. Not too confident as the poll states. Just because if one goes down, one of those three guys, what are we looking at? Who comes in? Mike Jackson, I think, is sufficient, but not well, obviously it's not an upgrade from last season because he was playing that position last season. And I think, this is a defense that's trying to make upgrades anywhere they can. So I think adding a piece to that room, drafting a player, a corner that I tried to get you guys to do in the first round, the guy from Michigan, that is a absolute stud. Just upgrading that room if possible, but there's just so many holes in this defense. If they bring these guys back, if they re-sign Mike Jackson, and this is the group they roll with, like, I'm okay. Like, I'm not stressing. I'm not, like, losing any sleep over it. But because we have one safety under contract right now on the roster, we know about the defensive line. There were comments made about we want to stop the run. So maybe this is something that is legitimate and we're looking at as a possibility going into next season. But I would personally like to see some improvements there.
Yeah, I'm just pulled this up. I found this. So we had 1,000 votes, and I'm kind of shocked, somewhat confident, almost 50% of that.
I'm shocked that 8% said very confident. That's the number that floors me more. 8% of 1,000 are very confident.
Would Charles Smith-Wade on that list, Ricky? Are you kidding me?
Yeah, what is 8%? What is that? About 80 votes. That's about 80 people. So about 80 people thought, or 80 people are very confident. Yeah, that is.
Which means 80 people shocking. Have a better connect than I do because that is some real optimism.
I'm teetering between not at all and not too confident. I don't think Mike Jackson had that great of a year last year. The stats are going to pop out, the pass breakups, but there were many times where teams were targeting his way, and he was getting picked on at points in games. So I don't know. I honestly would like to see them look elsewhere at that position. I thought he was serviceable last year for what he was called to do, but I'm not confident, very confident in him. I'm not confident in Smith-Wade at this point from what I've seen. Ricky, you talked about him with, playing that nickel spot. Do you think that's like his lock, or do you think they might try to test him outside still?
I think that he's proven to be a capable outside defender and comfortable on the boundary based on his college tape. What that means against NFL caliber athletes out there, I think, is a different transition. I don't know that they would try to do that, but I think that he could be a fine depth piece. Like, let me phrase it this way, right? Jahdae Barron is a guy that a lot of people really like in the draft community. He's probably best suited as a nickel corner, and he potentially could be a top 10 pick. If you have the ability to get this game changer like that, right? And let's say that Evero is hell-bent on bringing in a game changer at the nickel position. We knew that they really liked Mikey Sainristil out of Michigan last year. Are you really telling me that, like, if that's what they think can unlock some of this scheme for them, is that versatile chess piece that could play outside, could play safety, could play nickel, that we would look at it and say, yeah, but our 5th-round pick from Washington State last year that kind of came in and wasn't completely atrocious, that's the guy that we really want to kick out of the room? No, man, like, it's depth. And you either sink or swim. If you bring in better competition and they beat you out, guess what? You weren't that guy. And that's not mean. It's the nature of the business of football. You have to win your job. That's it, man. And so I am only of the opinion that I think that is a position I am totally cool bringing in competition and trying to upgrade. It's an important position in the NFL, man. Like, look at what they're doing with nickels right now. That's a critical piece. You look at the amount of snaps that these nickel players are taking. Mike Sainristil, the guy that I was just talking about, the rookie, he finished in like the top 35 defensive snaps in his rookie season playing in Washington. And he was absolutely terrific. I don't know why it's giving me a thumbs up bubble. I think StreamYard thinks I'm cooking. Nobody else does, but StreamYard is really enjoying me getting animated tonight. I appreciate you, StreamYard.
Oh, man, that's funny. Hey, Super Chat, you guys are quiet tonight. Show us some money, damn it.
Don't listen to Curtis. He's all hopped up on cold medicine. He doesn't mean damn it. He means please and thank you.
Let's go on to the center position. It was something we talked about a lot this past offseason, before the 2024 season. And it sounds like Carolina is trying to bring back Corbett and Mays. They're in contract talks with both of those guys. Bryson, I'll start with you on this. You cool with this room? Do you want them to add one in the draft? What are your thoughts on both Corbett and Mays coming back?
Yeah, I feel like we just had a conversation about a player coming off of 2 back-to-back season-ending injuries, and the Panthers moving on, an aging player. Corbett was outstanding as a center when he was on the field. But this is a guy that is coming off of 2 season-ending injuries, albeit he played more games than Shaq Thompson did. But I think not adding to that room, and Cade Mays played admirably, I would say, as the center, but he wasn't an all-star. He wasn't a Pro Bowl. Like, he's a backup is what Cade Mays is. And I think, you're rolling into next season with hopes that Corbett stays healthy throughout the whole year. And if not, then you're rolling with Cade Mays at center again. I think depth needs to be added there for sure. I would like Corbett back. I'm not against that. I think he's a good player when healthy and on the field. But I think this room can be upgraded as well, as very many positions on this team can be. And I think, adding someone that you can rely on a little bit more at a higher level of play than Cade Mays would be beneficial moving forward, just based off of Corbett's, injury history.
Do you want me to go, Curtis? Okay. I couldn't tell. Now, I will say this about a super chat, too. I think that Curtis, the lagging that happens with his internet, I think that it dissipates when we get super chats. So if anyone wants to test that theory, too, a couple dollars just to see if he stops moving like, a digital snowman in 1976, we can figure it out. But so Austin Corbett, I really do like, and I think that you're onto it, Bryson, is that if Corbett were healthy and you could look into a crystal ball and say he's going to be your starting center for the entire or even 13 games of next season, I'd say sign me up. I'm 100% with it. I think that his experience is terrific. I think that playing for the different teams and being a part of the Panthers for now a handful or 3 years, I think is also appealing. I love the continuity. I like the steady voice. But I'll say this. You've got Damian Lewis, Robert Hunt. I think that they help both Austin Corbett and Cade Mays look as adequate, above average as they were. And so I can't help but wonder optimistically, wonder romantically, right? What happens if you bring in an actual very good center to play that position? And then all of a sudden, it's not the guards that are elevating that center's play to an above average clip. You could have a legitimate, dominant, talented, long-term solution in the interior of your offensive line for Bryce Young for the duration of his rookie contract. Then you talk about Ikem Ekwonu on the left side. We've heard they're thinking about extending him. You're basically saying for the foreseeable future, these four spots locked up. You want to let Taylor Moton play his final year out, take that hit on the cap, see if he has that longevity that he's had his entire career for one more year as he gets older. I'm okay with that because you know what you could do? You could draft a right tackle in the 4th or 5th round of this year's draft or 3rd round. I don't give a shit. Let's get crazy. Prioritize that offensive line. And if you do that, though, and you still got Timo and he plays well and you let him play on that and you don't extend him, then you let him walk and you got this budget replacement behind him that you like and that you believe in. And you got that unit locked up for the same amount of money for the foreseeable future. It's appealing. I don't hate it. Jared Wilson, the center out of Georgia, terrific football player. I'm very intrigued. I don't know if anyone knows how I felt about centers last year. I would say I was horned up for him, right? Any chance I got to talk about centers, I was out here talking about them. And I don't typically do that. But Jackson Powers Johnson, Zach Frazier was a guy that I kept telling every single person, just draft Zach Frazier and you got your solution. And guess what he did? He played like a damn all-pro as a rookie in Pittsburgh. So all I am saying is that there is a solution. If it's Corbett and Cade Mays, cool. I think you're betting on that continuing. And that's a bet that I don't necessarily know I would take. And I have bet on women's Korean tennis at 3:00 in the morning. So,
hey, we have a super chat. Mr. Cuddy in Florida, we appreciate it. Hope you're enjoying the alligators.
Look at that. Look at that. He got the super chat and Curtis's cup isn't blurry. It went straight to the screen. And it's working, y'all.
$2. We appreciate it. Cheers. I will drink.
Well, thank you, Michael. Appreciate you, man.
Appreciate it, man.
Bryson, Cade Mays, rookie, were you done? I'm sorry. I kind of cut in there a little bit.
I'm always done, man. If you don't stop me, then I'll keep going. Like I'm on my second IPA of the night. I'm gonna crack a third soon. So y'all are gonna have to just.
Bryson, did you talk? I'm all over the place. Did you talk about Corbett and Mays already?
I did.
Okay, I apologize.
His internet was loading. Sorry, Bryson.
My biggest thing with this, I think they're serviceable, and I think Carolina made the mistake. If they were going to go out and get a replacement, they should have done it last draft. I haven't done too much on this draft, and Ricky, you mentioned a guy already, so I don't know what this class is, but I'm almost positive it's not to the level it was last year. So if Carolina wanted to find a draft 10-year player, I think it was in last year's draft, and I don't, maybe they might dabble this year, but I just think I think they're okay with this position being serviceable. And honestly, Corbett, I mean, he was a top 10 center last year when he was healthy. It's just, can the guy stay on the damn field? Yeah. My big thing, and excuse me, is Brady Christensen. And I know that was, kind of the writing on the wall that, this guy was probably going to, get a starting job elsewhere. But I've always liked him. I know Bryson has liked him too here. And I honestly think I prefer him over Cade Mays. Your dollar amount might be a little bit more because of his versatility of where he can play. But I preferred him at center over Mays when he got in there for one game, I think it was, and then they shifted him back and put in Mays. So that was kind of my disappointment, and I kind of I got tipped off about this a couple of weeks ago that Brady Christensen was going to be testing free agency, and I was told that he loves Charlotte, he likes where the team is headed, but he wants an opportunity to start. And he was told in his exit interview, per my source, that Carolina was going to be, they told him they were going to be competitive with him, whatever the hell that means. That's kind of where they were at. Now that was in January. So we're almost into March now. But yeah, I mean, I think Brady is going to find somewhere, and I think some team is going to pick him up because I do think he's got value, and he's proven he can start pretty much anywhere on the offensive line. And I do think he's decent. I really do. I know I know he had a lot of haters in this fan base, but he was one guy I liked. I really did. I thought he played well for what he was thrown into over his career.
Well, so what I would say with Brady and Bryson, maybe you tell me if I'm completely thrown off with this one or not, but I think that most of his value comes from his versatility and not from his proficiency at one position, which I think makes sense for a team that maybe is strictly looking for depth as opposed to a starter level player at another team. But what he's hoping for is that somebody doesn't have a plan, whether it's at left guard, right tackle, right guard, center. They don't have a locked-in starter for that, so there's an open competition in camp. He'll go and he'll get his versatility money. I think that it would be a little bit silly for us to pay him the amount that I think he could probably get on the open market just to be like our backup right guard or left guard, whatever. He's not going to start at tackle for us. I personally thought that Cade Mays and Corbett both played better than Brady Christensen. I think they fit better from a schematic standpoint and from a physicality standpoint at center than what Brady Christensen offers for us. But I also will preface this with Brady. When they said they were going to be competitive, Curtis, that's what your source said. It's very possible that what they're saying is kind of like what you would say, you know, like you're talking to this chick and before you want to like make things serious, she's like, well, I just don't know that you're the best that I get. Hey, go out there and look. Like, go out there and find out if a guy would treat you better. Go out, you find out a guy that makes more money, buy you a better car, cooks better than me, makes you laugh more, whatever it might be, right? And maybe they do go with the person that has the nicer car. Maybe they do go with the person that has the more money. Doesn't mean that they're going to feel good about that solution, but they got what they wanted out of it. So that's what could happen with Brady. Brady could get offered the more money. He could take the money. And if he starts and he's not terrific, then what happens to him then? Doesn't matter, right? Because he got the money. So, like, money is what these guys are going to look at in free agency. He's not going to get sold on where this Panthers team is going. He's going to get sold on the money. So if somebody wants to come in there and offer him more, it would be wise for the Carolina Panthers to not pay starter tackle money or backup tackle money for a backup center, in my opinion.
So my question, though, Ricky, to you, and I think I know where your answer is here, but you don't think he could be the possible replacement to Taylor Moton?
No. I don't think that he's...
I mean, he played tackle his entire career in college.
Left tackle, yeah, which is based almost more off of finesse and footwork, which is where Brady kind of makes his hay. The length is a real issue. I know that everyone wants to say like that, you know, Matt Rule was a idiot for not letting him try out. And I agree with that to an extent, right? It's kind of this argument that you're going to hear about Will Campbell from LSU, the left tackle this year. You let him try the position that he's played his entire life, his entire career, and done it at a high level. You let him try that position before you just say that he can't do it. He's only proven that he can do it. This far into Brady Christensen's NFL career, I don't know how you could say he's our answer at right tackle when he's never really done it at a high level. I would go and I would grab, again, this is just me being a crazy person who wanted us to have an actual center on the roster instead of a project. And I would go and grab an actual right tackle in an NFL draft or in free agency. I would grab somebody that's played the position that I could point to and say, that's why I want this guy on my team, because he's proven he can do it. I have not seen Brady Christensen do anything that proves to me he can be the dominator enforcer on the strong side of an offense.
I mean, that's fair. I disagree with you, but that's your opinion.
That's
Bryson,
I like that you disagree with me, man. Finally, you and I are butting heads. This is what I was promised last year when I joined the show.
Bryson, what are your thoughts on Brady at, you know, a Moton replacement?
Yeah, I mean, I tend to lean more towards Curtis's opinion than Ricky's on this. I like Christensen. Yeah, sorry to single you out there, Ricky.
Don't say sorry. This is great. I'm getting bashed right now wearing a Maryland hat. I've never felt more alive.
Yeah, I think he's played well when on the field. I agree with Ricky in regards to the center position. I do feel like Cade Mays and Austin Corbett obviously played that position better, but when he's filled in at left tackle or filled in at a guard position, I believe when Moton missed, no, that might have been Yosh that filled in for
Yosh filled in, yeah.
Yeah. I think he's been admirable when on the field, and I think he does bring value in regards to what you both mentioned in his versatility. You know, if someone goes down, you know, he's plug and play. He's played the position. I do agree with Ricky in regards to if he brings a lot of money on the open market, I don't know if he's worth paying a substantial amount for that role on this team. I think if he goes out and sees, you know, the market isn't what he expected and he comes back to Carolina and takes, you know, a lesser deal, then I would definitely be open for him to return. But I do think he's going to command a higher amount of money on the open market than what the Panthers are going to be comfortable paying him for that position, because he's not going to be a starter in Carolina. And I know that's what he wants, and that's what he's going to get paid to do. So I would be open if the contract was right, but I just don't think it's going to be.
Can I ask y'all a question, a collaborative question, since both of y'all hate me?
Yeah, absolutely.
If the Carolina Panthers were to have signed a career backup player who has never played the position that they're getting paid to come in and start for your team for, would you be happy and excited about it and feel good? Like if a team signs Brady Christensen to be their starting right tackle, you would feel good about that if that was the Panthers doing that to a backup who has never started to play that position at a high level?
I will say this. I don't think he's going to command
He's trying to work around it. I will say this. No, the answer is no. You wouldn't like it.
But I will say I don't think this guy is going to command a boatload of money. And I think you could. I don't. I just don't.
But why? But why would Brady Christensen not command a boatload of money if he's so good?
I don't think a lot of people know. I don't think a lot of teams know about this guy. I mean, he's been rotated all over. I mean, he went from left tackle to guard to he's played right tackle. I think he's played right tackle a little bit. He's played right guard. He's played center. Like this guy, his whole career has been shifted all over. This is the guy that was supposed to come in as the left tackle. And honestly, I thought serviceable at times. I do. I'm maybe in the minority there, but I do think when he played, there was times where I'm like, damn, if Icky's sucking, let's get this other guy in here. And I'll be honest with you, I think he's a better player than Yosh. I wasn't too fond of Yosh this last year. I didn't think he played that well when he slid in at right tackle. I thought he wasn't that great.
Do you think that an NFL team would want to sign Yosh to be their starter? And Brady didn't beat out Yosh here in Carolina, a team that
I do think so, and I'll tell you why. And this goes back to my previous argument. Yosh has tape at that position in Green Bay.
Oh, that's what I said.
He was thrown in there. He was thrown there. But that's what I'm saying. I have trust in Brady that I do think he'd do a serviceable job at right tackle. You don't see it, and he hasn't played that position, but I've seen him at other positions. I think he could fill in. I think he did a pretty good job. So, I'm going to keep fighting this one.
No, I get it. Brady seems like a very nice guy. I guess I'm just saying this, that like I think his value and his monetary command comes from his versatility. And what we need is someone that can play one position really well. If we're talking about a starting center, we need someone that can play center really well. I don't think he's proven to be able to do that at a super high level. If you want to bet on him being a right tackle or a left tackle, I am A-okay with that. But the Panthers do not need to pay him to be their starting left tackle or right tackle because he's never been able to win those jobs. And I am a person who does look at this and say, every day in football, we just talked about this earlier, right? You win your job every day. He hasn't done it. And that's with multiple coaching staffs. That's not just because Matt Rule is an incompetent Cornhuskin idiot, which he is. I'll say that every day of the week if I can, twice on Sundays. But it's just the honest to God truth, man. So as much as people want to say that Icky isn't the answer and that he was a bad left tackle, he keeps beating Brady out. He keeps on progressing and developing.
Yeah, I'm not saying that now. I don't want anyone thinking that. I do think Icky has stepped up, and
maybe Cho Smith-Wade. Maybe Cho Smith-Wade can come in and fill in at center every now and then if we need him to, since you guys love him so much and I hate him.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't know who Ricky hates more, Brady Christensen or Cho Smith-Wade. But
I'm a hateful person today, man.
I think my last point about it is he hasn't had a, I would say, consistent opportunity to start on this team. And what area of coaching staff through his tenure has put players in a position to succeed in Carolina? I think you going through the Matt Rule years and all the different coaches leading up to Dave Canales, maybe being in a second year with Joe Gilbert as his offensive line coach, we see that improvement because we saw that with Icky and, other players. So I think he deserves a little bit of grace there because we give it to a lot of other players. Bryce Young being one, and other guys we saw, Chuba take that step forward this year under this coaching staff with a consistent role. I think there is hope or possibility there in Christensen if he were to get a consistent starting position, but I'm not open to paying him that starter money at all. I feel
like both of y'all have had dinner with Brady Christensen at the melting pot or something, and y'all just had an exemplary experience.
Well, I just hate. what drives me nuts, and Ricky mentioned this, Panther Bo's bringing it up. I am so tired of the measurements thing. I really am. It drives me nuts. And I know this staff and this front office, they've clearly, I mean, they said it this week. We'll talk about it soon with Dan Morgan with height and length. But if the guy can play football, I don't give a shit what his arm length is. If the guy can throw the football like Bryce Young, who was 5'10" and a half, and no one thought he was going to be able to throw over the fucking middle, and look what he's doing. Like, I'm tired of the measurement bullshit with this team and the fan base. And I get it, because that's what we're hearing from the front office. But like, if the guy can play, and I feel that way at any position. There's guys, prospects that I really like in this upcoming draft that, you know, they might be slighted a little bit in an area, but you watch their tape, they're fucking making plays. And this team always goes off of these measurements, and then we're sitting here talking about why so-and-so player in the first round or second round ain't making the cut. Well, maybe start picking guys who make fucking plays. I don't care about the measurement. I'm not. It's not you, Ricky. I've heard it
me.
before.
This is all so like viciously aimed at me.
I'm just
but
tired
I'll tell
of
you,
the measurements.
Curtis, I gotta tell you though, like I'm enjoying this so thoroughly, because like you're yelling at me, and it looks like some sort of like Japanese dubbed movie that I'm watching on Netflix, where like you're moving, I'm hearing all these slaps and noises, but like your mouth isn't matching up, and I'm like, it's so adorable. He's so mad at me.
Does anyone else feel that way, or am I just ranting?
No, you're right. You and Bryson are the same. Y'all like each other more than you like me. That's okay. I'm the new kid on the block.
I wouldn't go that far, Ricky.
It's fine. Look, the last thing I'll say about it is that the length thing, I do agree, man. It's a trivial thing to like get hung up on. And I started out my argument about Brady saying, I think that he deserved to get that shot at left tackle when he first was drafted by the team. I think that he should have proven that he couldn't do something that he was doing at the next level before just being tossed to the side because of the measurements. But the measurements also aren't a specific to Carolina Panthers thing. There is a lot of supportive data that will come out that will show you that that threshold of 33 is really, really like a key indicator on the outside offensive tackle positions, because you get these wide 9 alignments. You get these guys that are out so far that have these long arms. And I just did an episode today talking about Darius Alexander for Draft Crush, who has 34-inch arms. And we watched individual reps of him being able to long arm that lineman and hold him off and push him out of position. And the offensive lineman trying to touch him literally couldn't even get on his shoulder pads. He was touching jersey because he didn't have the length. That's what you face, and that's what teams are scared of when it comes to the length. That's it.
Good episode, by the way. I watched majority of that. That was good stuff.
Oh, thanks, afternoon. Man. Yeah.
Yes. Let's go. We're still on offense line here. We'll move along with this a little bit quicker with this one. Ikem Ekwonu. I miss this. I think Dunk was the one that he pointed it out. I didn't even hear this in the presser. But they're talking about potentially getting a long-term deal done already with Icky before the 5th-year option deadline comes up. I believe is that May? It's up, or March? I don't remember. But a deadline's coming up where you have to do the 5th-year option. So Bryson, I'll ask you, and then real quick with Ricky, are you comfortable with them giving him a long-term deal at this point? Do you think it's smart, or do you think they should take the 5th-year option and see how in another year in the system?
Yeah, I think this is another player that deservedly so came into the season with a lot of heat. Same in regards to J.C. Horn and his health. Ekwonu's was more of his play on the field, and we just hadn't seen it yet. Besides his rookie season, that was pretty good. I think he came in this season, and I didn't really say his name a lot, which is a good thing. He played pretty well for the most part throughout the season, and I think the consistency that he brought, specifically in the run game, he is a mauler. Brings an attitude that is what you want in the NFL in the run game, and he's improved in pass sets too. I mean, he's good for a hold every now and then, but he wasn't really getting abused in pass sets this past season like he was the year before. Left tackle is a hard position to figure out for teams across the league. I think when you have a guy that has shown promise and has shown progress, you got to pay him, man. And I don't know what a deal looks like for Ekwonu. I'm sure it's going to be a hefty price tag because, again, left tackle is a coveted position in this league. You know, people argue that it's like the second most important position on an NFL team behind the quarterback. So I think I'm open to either. I understand if they want to do the 5th-year option and see it one more year and see if he continues to progress. But, you know, I think this is a situation where maybe you do the 5th year and he continues to look really good, and then you kind of price yourself out of the left tackle and he hits the open market and you lose him, and then we're back to square one at that position. So, you know, it's a chance either way to go the 5th-year option route. I think, in my opinion, I probably would just sign him to a long-term contract. I think that's probably the smartest way to go about it if it's the right amount. I would like to see where he's gauging himself at in that market and go from there.
I think that's the key, right? And here's the difference. When we talk about like the JC Horn extension and then we talk about an Ikem Ekwonu extension, JC knows that he is at the top of his player list, his positional list. He knows that. And we know that, and the rest of the league knows that. Icky, on the other hand, was borderline close to losing his starting job just before last season. And that's at least public opinion. Maybe that wasn't the way the team internally felt, but he had some really serious struggles. And he still didn't reach an elite level by any means. I think that any metric you look at outside of run blocking, this dude is a grader, man, always has been. His scouting profile coming out of NC State was always about his footwork. Can his footwork speed ever catch up to the power in his hands and the technical prowess that he has in the run game? Can it ever marry? I still don't think it's there, but what you saw, and Bryson brings up the pass sets and stuff, he's also doing a lot of different set work that he's doing. He's getting into the jump sets. He's getting into the quick sets. That's putting him in better positions to make reactive moves with his hands and time his punches better and use that length. We just went on this long ass rant about Brady Christensen's T-Rex arms. Well, Ikem has those go gadget arms, and he's starting though. And here's the beautiful thing about that length is that when you do unlock that for a player and they start to realize what that advantage, that natural advantage gives them over their defender and over their job, they start to be able to really use that to their advantage. And that's what Icky showed, the ability to comprehend those things and then put them into action. That is what I have looked at from Icky. I have wanted to see that Icky can show me he gets it. I'm not asking for him to be perfect right away. He's also a young dude. Icky was really young when he came into the league. So if you sign him for 5 years, at the end of that 5-year contract, I think he'd be like 27. That's pretty remarkable in itself, or 28 or something like that. Like, that's pretty remarkable in itself, man. So I don't have a problem with signing Icky long term. It would be my approach. But what I was going with the JC Horn thing, you don't have to pay him top dollar. You get in here early and you pay him adequately. You pay him nicely, man. Like, you reward him for his hard work. You reward him for his progress. But you say to him, look, dude, we're going to be very honest with each other at this big, long table, right? Maybe you put him all the way at one end of the table and Dan and Brant are on the other end. And then maybe just have Dan or Dave Canales sitting in the middle, right? Mr. Positivity, who's like kind of like passing the notes back and forth. He's like, here, write your number down, write your number down. By the way, how's the kids? How's the wife? Like, just having a nice little day at the office, right? But you put them down and you have this conversation, say, I want to speak to each other like adults. I want to speak honestly and bluntly about this. We're extremely pleased with your development. We think that you're better than other people think you are, and we're willing to pay you that way. But we're also a team that is building something, and we're not going to overpay you to stay here. So let us pay you now. Let you keep earning it. We've got this wizard Brant Tillis over here in the corner office now with the view, right? He's staring right at Honeywell every single day over off South Mint Street. Why don't you let him figure out how to restructure and how to bonus that out? If you ever do reach that elite status, man, we're going to take care of you. We're taking care of you now, Icky. That's what I would do. Put me in the office, man. Put me in that damn room.
Tony asked a question. Is there a worthwhile trade-off of Icky getting lighter to handle speed off the edge better or keep him bigger and a road grader?
Is there a worthwhile trade-off of Icky getting lighter? No, because Icky's weight isn't the problem. It's his footwork, in my opinion. And it's marrying the lower half to the upper half of his body. I don't think that his weight has anything to do with it. You look at Icky. I don't know if you've ever seen Icky in person. He's a Charlotte guy, so like I've seen him many times just within passing and all that kind of stuff. This is not a dude who is some big sloppy looking guy. This dude is svelte for his size. Maybe he's like 320 pounds, but he is built very well. Yeah, sure, he's got a lot of mass on the top half of his body, but that's the way a lot of these offensive linemen are. It is about marrying the behavior and the movement of the top and the bottom for me.
I agree. I don't think his weight is an issue at all. It's
what's the chat talking about here?
Yeah,
what do they say? What's the crazy comment? I missed it.
Yeah, I didn't see that either. I was looking at that.
Do we need to remove something? I'm sorry, Bryson,
I thought they were talking about me. I thought they were talking about removing me, and I was like, dude, I get it, man. Like, I haven't been everyone's favorite tonight, but like kicking me out of the club seems a little dramatic.
I think
anyway,
Christensen and Charles Smith-Wade might kick you out of the club, Ricky.
Charles Smith-Wade could try to kick me out of the club. You know, he could. But you know what? He's had a hard time kicking inside, so I'm not that worried about his kicks. I'm kidding. Charles Smith-Wade played well. God damn it. See, now you got me sounding like I hate Charles Smith-Wade again. And his name is
All right, here we go. Let's move on to these next couple free agents. These are three guys that Dan said that he's going to let test free agency. Eddie Pinheiro, Tom Tremble, Xavier Woods. And then he went on to say the door is not closed on Pinheiro coming back. And it was like a dagger to the stomach. Because I thought this guy was dead and gone. I mean, if you don't follow him on Instagram, he's out in Cabo having the time of his life, enjoying the scenery out there and the beaches like he did last year. But what are you guys' thoughts on them not closing the door on Eddie? We'll just start with him and then we'll work our way down the line.
Bryson,
that door, that door should be sealed shut with cement and whatever else you can put on the door to keep it sealed. He should not be a Carolina Panther at all moving forward. Not even a practice squad guy. Like, just move on from him. We've talked all year, even into the offseason, about how we just don't think he's a good kicker. He lacks in a lot of areas that you want your kicker to be good at, and unfortunately, he's not good at those areas. So I don't think there should be an open door or it even be like halfway open. Close it, lock it, seal it, do whatever you need to do. Keep him off my team, please.
Before I get into Eddie Pinheiro, can I just bring up the fact that now you guys have the entire chat sitting here? My buddy, Edgar Salmingo Jr., the nicest guy I know in the world, legitimately, probably the nicest person I know. Ricky, why do you hate Joe Smith-Wade?
Not
great.
Not only are you a Joe Smith-Wade hater, you also like Derek Carr.
I also like Derek Carr. Okay, so let's talk about Alex then. How about it? Bo wants to know how many burners does he have. Bo, you don't want the answer to that question, man. It's like a fucking 1,000 or something. Eddie Pinheiro, let's just talk about him for a second. Okay, we did our part, right? We brought up his name. We mentioned it. We did all that. Get him out. Send him out. You talk about closing the door. I just pressure washed the house the other day, right? Entire exterior, got it all done. We've got a door on the exterior, man. When we put out the guy who built the house put in like a additional room for the pantry, but he didn't take the door off, so it's like this dummy door that's just constantly shut. It doesn't open. Doesn't have a way to open it up because it's just brick. It's just mason behind it. And I like to think of that being the way that I would resolve the Eddie Pinheiro situation. I would just like a Looney Tunes cartoon, right? Just cement it all behind. Just close it all off. If he's still in there, he's still in there. It is what it is. I can't help him then. But if we want to let him out, then let him out and let him go do his thing. Like, we don't have to seal him in. I'm not asking for this to be some like Guillermo del Toro movie or anything like that. Like, we can let him out and go and frolic in the forest with his, mesh shirt on and figure out another team that wants to pour him Mai Tais while he claims to be the most accurate kicker and missing 37-yarders when the game is on the line. I don't really give a shit. Just get him out of Carolina, man. Let's move on. Let's talk about backup quarterbacks again. That was more interesting.
Yeah, we need to get rid of Eddie. I'll keep it short. Tommy Tremble. This was one of the shockers for me, and I don't know how you guys feel. I want to ask you that. I was shocked when Dan went out and said this is a very thin tight end room, because I was under the impression that they liked Tremble. And I thought for sure they're going to try to sign him, but it sounds like they're going to allow him test free agency, but they are open to having him back. So there's somewhat of a hope there, and I don't know if he's going to garner interest from other teams. So that kind of shocked me, honestly, when Dan said that. You guys know how I feel about this tight end room. I don't think it's very good. I do like JT Sanders. He's my guy. Tremble hasn't eclipsed like 300 yards in a season ever in the NFL. I think he adds value blocking over JT Sanders. But I wouldn't mind if this whole room was kind of turned upside down and they brought some new guys in. I'm kind of for that. But what are you guys' thoughts on that tight end room, Dan Morgan's comments, and Tremble?
Bryson, I'll start. I would keep Tremble for the right price because I think that he adds value as a blocker. I think that he shows at least a little bit of a rapport with Bryce Young and knowledge of the offense. I just don't think he's ever going to turn into what I wanted Tommy Tremble to turn into. And that's a thing that I've had to kind of like get right with myself more so than anything, is that I had really high hopes for Tommy Tremble. But I think that what you do is you kind of like what we talked about earlier, let him go out there and see if the grass is actually greener on the other side. Let him find out what the market value is for him. Let him see what other teams think about him. And if he doesn't get the wow offer of saying, hey, look, man, we really like your tape and we think that you can come in and offer us a starting tight end and blue, all that kind of fun jazz, then maybe you come back and you say, hey, so look, Tommy, we'll give you good tight end 2 money, right? And we don't even know that JT Sanders is our tight end 1, but we'll tell you you're our tight end 2. This is the difficult part for me with the tight end room, guys. I'm not sold that JT Sanders is tight end 1. I think that he has potential, and I want to see that potential facilitated, and I want to see them put him in advantageous situations. But he's got individual stuff to work on before he can ever take that next step, in my opinion. And he doesn't offer a ton as a blocker. So if he's not an elite pass catcher and route runner, an option for Bryce Young, what is he? I mean, honestly, I'm genuinely asking, like, what do you do with him? What kind of like depth chart allocation do you give him? What kind of resource allocation? What do you do as far as bringing in competition? Because I'm not sold on it. And Tommy, I think, is a more well-rounded player, can block for you. You got to have a complimentary blocker if you're going to try to prioritize JT Sanders. The free agent market for tight ends is not terrific. I would take Tommy over just about everyone that's available.
Bryson?
Yeah, I do know there's another really good blocking tight end that's going to be a free agent too. I think he spent some time in Carolina, but
don't say it. Don't you fucking do it.
Oh, you dare do it.
No, I'm just fucking with you. Tommy Tremble.
We do not use fucking curse words on this show.
Tommy Tremble, I think I would resign because I've been a fan of his since he's been drafted to Carolina. I do think he's struggled to put up the numbers. You know, Curtis mentioned he's been in some very bad offenses in his time in Carolina under some very bad coaching staffs. And I think he's flashed potential. He is a well-rounded player, like Ricky mentioned. He can be involved in the pass game. He can block. I think there's value there, but again, it goes back to what kind of market is there for him in free agency. Is the price right for Carolina to bring him back? I think while I like him and, you know, I have an attachment there, you got to be smart about it. And you're not going to overpay for Tremble to come back to Carolina just because you like the player. You maybe see some potential. If another team is, you know, blowing it out of the water and offering him, a decent contract, then I think you let him walk and go the draft or bring in a guy that, you know, Canales has some familiarity with from maybe like Seattle days or Tampa days. I don't know, but I think if the price was right, I would bring Tremble back in a heartbeat because, like Ricky mentioned, there is that familiarity with Bryce. There is that familiarity with the offense. And he's been a competent player. I don't think when he's on the field, he's not like oh God, Tommy Trimble's like no threat at all. He's not going to do anything. He's going to drop the ball. I think he brings some threat to the offense when he's on the field, and that could be in both the run game and in the pass game. So I think that's valuable, and let's just see what the price.
I completely agree with that. Yep.
I just want new blood. This tight end room isn't it. Just give me new blood. That's all. And I agree with Ricky's sentiment. I don't know if what they see in JT Sanders yet either. I don't know if they know that. And I don't know if they're confident with that right now. So, I mean, this tight end room has sucked for years. It has. That's the reality of it. And I think they need to do is add talent. And we're going to talk about a guy here towards the end of the show that, Dave Canales talked about that is pretty damn intriguing. So let's talk quickly here about Xavier Woods, and then we're going to take a break so Ricky can relieve himself. So Xavier Woods.
Did you guys know that there's a private chat on a streaming service where the 3 people that are in the studio can speak quietly to each other? Yeah, Curtis just let you know that secret. Maybe you can make another pot of tea, you son of a...
It's nothing sacred.
So Xavier Woods, let's make this quick. I think we all agree that he had a down year last year. This safety room, I think, is another room that needs to be revamped across the board. And I don't hate this at all for them wanting or allowing him to test the market.
Hold on, before we get into this, what is this comment? You all listen to this guy like his mouth is a prayer book. He's one of the biggest pessimists I see so far. Hey, Drip, who are you talking about? Just out of curiosity, who are you talking about? Man, it can be me. That's okay. But who we talk about here? All right, let's get back into the show. But Drip, if you can, put in a comment here to know which one of us is the idiot.
So I'm interested to know who that is as well. But in regards to Xavier Woods, I have no problem whatsoever for him testing free agency. I would prefer for them to move on from him and add younger pieces to that safety room. I think he's aging and his play is declining, and he's not the oldest safety in the NFL by any means, but I think there was a clear deficiency from his position in this past season. So I think revamping that room, like you mentioned, Curtis, is a priority for this team, and I think they do move on from him.
It's tough when your coach or your GM says that we need safeties to prioritize communication, and because that's important for our system, and that you're not going to stick around long if you can't do that. And then you're having these questions about, is Xavier Woods coming back? Jordan Fuller was signed to a temporary deal. He doesn't seem to be coming back. The writing is kind of on the wall there, right? Like your GM is pretty much saying, we don't think that you guys are terrific at communication, and that's an important thing that we need for this system. I think that Xavier Woods is a solid, adequate safety in the NFL. I don't think that he is a terrible football player. Let me preface by saying that. I think that our back third of our defense really needs to be terrific right now. And I think it's easier to make that portion of our coverage better than it is to completely reupholster the defensive front and that second level of the defense all in one fell swoop. I think you can bring in a free agent player, where that's a Javon Holland that everyone likes, or a guy that I'm higher on, Trevon Moehrig, the kid out of Las Vegas, the former second round pick out of TCU. I like him a lot. I think that he is terrific in run support. I think that he is a playmaker. And when Dave Canales talks about valuing taking the ball away, I think that's something that Moehrig brings. And then I think that you have to look at this class and say they bring in a young player to compete with Damani Richardson, who I know Curtis is very unreasonably high on, Damani Richardson, which if Curtis had it his way, guys, Damani Richardson and Chau Smith-Wade would just kind of be alternating between every single position in the secondary outside of Jason Horn. Well, look, you made up things about me, so now I'm going to make up things about you. This is how this works.
I do like Damani. I don't think he's a starter.
This is politics, okay?
Let's just clear the air there.
Drip has answered. It's You, whoever you is.
This is like literally this is exciting stuff, man. I think he's talking to me since I asked the question, but I'm just not positive, and I don't know why he thinks that I am trying to be a pessimist. I will say this real quick, and then let's move on from Drip. But I've had a couple of beers, so I'm entertaining this now. I have been told that I am overly optimistic when it comes to the Carolina Panthers, and that I bang the drum for trying to find a silver lining about reasons to continue watching this football team. I'm a 37-year-old dude with a kid and a day job and all these other responsibilities, and I still think that it's worth coming on here and hanging out and talking about the Panthers because I believe. So if you think that that makes me the worst pessimist, bro, you've got some very positive people in your life, and I'm very happy for you.
Kitty lit, Alex.
Cheers.
Oh, he called. There it is. Drip.
He's double dipping
your name. But Kitty lit says it's pressure like a drip, drip, drip. That'll never stop. Whoa. Alex, by the way, I did watch your podcast trying to explain the cap. Still a little confused. I'll talk to you off air about that. But I did appreciate that. That 25-minute or so video. I did watch
Alex's comment. You guys might not know this because Bryson, you don't have a child yet, and Curtis, your child isn't old enough to watch it yet. That's from a Disney movie. What's the one? It's from the family. I forget the Mardi Gras. I can't remember the name of it now. But it's Encanto. Is that Encanto?
Oh yeah,
I think so.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, that's Encanto. Yes.
Okay.
That's a little dad joke because he's got his kid now, and all he does is watch Disney movies, and he used to make fun of me because every time that he wanted to do a show, I was out there watching Disney movies.
We're going to take a break. We're going to be right back. We got a lot more to talk about.
Curtis has to take a leak.
We'll focus more on the draft coming up and the conversations both Dan Morgan and Dave Canales had, along with the players and some of the details they provided us today in their press conferences. So stay tuned for that. We'll be right back. Exciting news, Panther fans. I'm thrilled to announce our partnership with BetStamp and Sign Up Expert, opening up an incredible opportunity for you to join sportsbooks in your area to get the best odds and new user offers. Head over to our dedicated page at signupexpert.com/Panthers to explore a selection of sportsbooks tailored to your region, each with unique offerings. If you're ready to take sports betting to the next level and show some love to Panthers on Tap, I highly recommend signing up for your next sportsbook through our Sign Up Expert link. So since they're both slackers, I'll just want to take a moment to thank everyone who is tuned in right now. We have 440-ish people listening live right now, so we do appreciate you guys. 10:30 at night here in North Carolina. We want to thank everyone, all the super chats as well, both Alex and Cuddy, for sending money our way. That goes right back into our channel. So we thank you guys graciously for that. But let's move on here as Ricky hopefully comes back here shortly. And I want to talk for a minute about a guy who's he was on the graphic for our intro to this show today. He has time and time again come up, not only in our mock draft, but also in the mock draft of many of the national draft analysts, and that's Jalen Walker. Dan Morgan he was asked about him this past, yesterday. I think Joe Person asked him about where he sees him playing, whether it's kind of that Frankie Louvu type role, strictly on the edge, rushing the passer. He kind of dodged the question, but he did say, I don't know the exact quote, so I don't even want to misquote him, but he spoke highly of him. So I just wanted to get your guys' thoughts on Dan Morgan's comments. I'll be honest with you. From what I took away, I think this guy is a Panther at number 8. The writing just is more and more as we come up, and I know it's early. I know we're not even into the combine workouts, but it just seems like this whole thing is narrowing in and zeroing in on this prospect. But what were you guys' thoughts on Dan Morgan's comments about Jalen Walker? Ricky, we'll start with you.
I don't know, man. I guess I'm not trying to read too much into it, but I will say that it seemed like he was intrigued by Jalen Walker. I don't know necessarily that I bought into the same thing of like, hey, it's definitely Jalen Walker, like no question about it. I think that they spoke well about a few other prospects as well, from what I heard. I think that Jalen Walker is just a very polarizing and intriguing prospect. But one thing that has always caught my eye with Jalen, and speaking to people around, the Georgia community, around their like scouting staff, is this dude has always had the intangibles and the leadership and just kind of that drive to be great, which is the fabric of the keep pounding mantra, which is the fabric of what our linebacker room has always stood for, right? My question for me is Jalen Walker a linebacker? I don't know. We could talk about that another time. But I think that if you're getting rid of Shaq, the emotional leader, you just got rid of Frankie Louvu, the actual leader last year. You do need somebody to come in and step in. Maybe J.C. Horn takes that. J.C. Horn hasn't been the most vocal in his career. DB hasn't been the most vocal in his career. They're kind of more like a, quiet and carry a strong stick, walk quietly and carry a strong stick kind of dudes. Jalen Walker could come in there and he could flip that thing on its ear. He'd come in there and be that rah-rah guy, and he can also disrupt the hell out of a passer. It just depends on what you're going to do with him. I think that 8 is a rich amount to take if your plan is to play him like Frankie Louvu. If you want to use him as an edge, I get it. So I think that it's very much likely that they have a affinity for Jalen Walker, but I don't think that it's set in stone, and I don't think that anyone who thinks it's set in stone has any good reason other than their personal opinion.
Bryson?
Yeah, I agree. I think his comments were coy. I think when GMs are asked about prospects that when you're in the top 10 and these prospects are projected to go in the top 10, they're going to have good things to say about them. I don't think they're going to be, that guy sucks. He's never going to be a Panther. We don't like him at all, kind of thing. And I wouldn't say that, it's a done deal at all. It just could be smoke to trade back. It could be, there's so many things that it could be this early on. I do think they like him. I'm not saying they don't, but I think you got to wait to see how the board falls, first of all, because if one of those players that they like more slips, obviously they're going to pass on Jalen Walker. I think there's options, and this is just an answer that the GM gave about a prospect that does intrigue him.
My biggest thing, and I get he's going to speak highly of him, but when Dan Morgan goes out and says, I'm going to keep close to the vest right now, but he's a good player, like not where you'd fit him in, I feel like that's a little interesting to me, because you had teams that were asked about Travis Hunter. Where do you view him, as a wideout, more of a corner? And most of those teams gave you an answer. And Dan Morgan here chose not to give that. So I thought that was a little interesting.
What is it about that's most
that's kind of where
to
I was headed with that.
Like what is it about that seems most
what are you
interesting?
trying to hide?
Well, what if it's so there's two ways with that, right? What if he's hiding that they do see him as this off-ball hybrid and not as a full-time edge? Because that could also signal that they don't view him as a top 10 pick. And so maybe they don't want to say, hey, look, all the love that this guy is getting from other NFL analysts and from other teams, we don't want to close that door, because what if somebody really covets Jalen Walker? They don't. But what if someone else really covets him and says, hey, we'll move up to 8 and get him, or we'll move up to 7 and get him, which might let another player drop down one spot to you. So that would be my other read on it, is that it may not be them proclaiming their love. Maybe it's them not closing the door on somebody else's. I think he's frozen.
3 business days later, Curtis gets the message. I agree
Curtis
with you.
When Curtis is done writing the letter and putting it in the bucket, we'll read it. But Bryson, what do you think about what I said? Is there anything that makes sense there?
Absolutely, that makes 100% sense. That's kind of where I was going. You closing the door on a player this early on, definitely, if you like him or don't like him, can change things for teams that potentially like him more than you and want to trade up. So I agree with you 100%. Curtis, now that you're back and you got the letter in the mail, What did you hear? Everything Ricky had to say? Oh my God, you have got to.
For the most part.
Okay, all right.
For the most part.
All right.
I took it as suspicious, and that's what I'll leave it at. Moving to, oh boy, Alex is running his mouth again.
He's right on this one, by the way.
Absolutely.
Let's move to Dave Canales. This is another prospect who made our title graphic, and I know there's several folks, or not several folks, but there's a few in the fan base that would love to see this guy picked at 8. But Dave Canales was, I believe, specifically about Tyler Warren, the tight end out of Penn State. And he said he's a very interesting prospect. Bryson, I don't know if we had this conversation during our mock draft or not about him. I know we talked about Ted, but I don't know if we ever touched on Warren. We might have. What are your thoughts on him at 8, and what did you think of Canales' comments?
I still lean towards the camp of I'm not putting any stock into any of the comments made during the combine. I think it's so early on. We haven't even seen these players perform at the combine yet. He is an interesting prospect. I mean, absolutely. He was a dynamic weapon at Penn State and was a completely different offense when he wasn't on the field. So I think in regards to that comment, that's probably pretty well thought amongst the league that he's an interesting prospect. In regards to him at 8, I think it really depends on, for me at least, everybody knows I'm a big proponent of getting Bryce more weapons and adding as much as you can to that offense while also still trying to upgrade the defense. I know it's easier said than done, but if that board falls a certain way and you're looking at a potential between like Mike Green and Jalen Walker and Tyler Warren, I think you think of it in that situation. But if like a Mason Graham falls, or is it Will Johnson from Michigan?
Yeah.
His name keeps slipping my mind. Yep. Will Johnson, I think you obviously go that route instead. Either of those Michigan guys. So I think it's something you consider at 8. Don't close the door on anything because who knows what can happen. But I think for them in particular, I don't think that's a position that they're really coveting and planning on taking at 8. But if the board just falls a shitty way for them and he's the best player available, Dan Morgan talked about like best player available versus need, and they're going to go best player available. So I think, it's a possibility, but I really wouldn't hold my breath on it.
Before you go, Ricky, quick, I just want to say, I think you guys are giving them a little bit too much credit here. This is the same front office and staff that told Xavier Legette weeks before the draft they were going to take him, and then he spilled the beans on it. Sure. So I think this front office is sometimes a little more revealing than they should be. So maybe they've learned from that from last year, but I put a little bit more weight into their comments than most people in the combine.
Yeah, so you feel more of like what Edgar was saying about, right here he says, I'm hoping that Ricky is right when I was talking about kind of like not closing the door on another team loving him, but I wonder if Dan Morgan is the 3D chess playing type, right? He's more brutally honest than not. That's kind of more what you're saying, is that like sometimes he says things and they just happen to be true. He just didn't even realize that he let it slip. But here's something that I'll phrase it this way. Do I think that they could like Tyler Warren? Absolutely. Do you know why I think they could like Tyler Warren? Because I think that most teams like Tyler Warren. I think that Tyler Warren is a terrific prospect who is playing a position that has become a premium position in the NFL if you have a dominant player at that position. But let me phrase it this one way. Who have you heard any NFL team, any of the 32 NFL teams say, yeah, we don't like that prospect at all. We're not interested at all. That dude is a complete dud. We're out. Have you ever heard that?
No.
Have you only heard positive things about prospects?
100%.
So I'm with Bryson on I'm not going to take much of this for anything more than posturing, positioning, and maybe even a good deal of honesty. It is very possible that they are early in their process, the same way that all of us other common folk are, where we're deciding who we like much more than the other people. We're envisioning how they fit in specific schemes, in specific offenses and defenses, right? Because that's the other part of this too, is that Tyler Warren is outstanding, man. I don't think that anyone would deny that. Do we get the value in Carolina out of a premier tight end at pick 8 that maybe a more creative, more aerial-minded offense, more innovative offense gets out of Tyler Warren at 8? It's possible. But do we maybe get more value out of a guy like Jalen Walker because they have a better plan for what they want to do with him? And I'm not saying that I think either of those things are true. I'm just posing a position or a question for everyone to think about. Like, it is entirely possible, man, that they are just telling you that they like everybody because they're essentially Jackie Moon and everybody loves everybody.
I'm glad I got one supporter here. Thank you, Edgar. Sorry, I'm just rolling through some of these comments.
I would say to answer Edgar's question, because they know they have no chance to draft Travis Hunter, so it doesn't make a difference what they say they view him as. He's going 1 or 2. They have a chance to draft Jalen Walker, and teams in front at 7 and teams behind also have a chance to draft Jalen Walker. As it sits right now, maybe he goes out into the combine and just wows everyone away, and his draft stock rises. And we're on draft day, he's going in the top 5. I don't know. That's in the world of possibilities, but I think at this point, he's clearly going to be available at their pick, and they don't want to give away information that could deter other teams to trade or swap with them.
So they said they saw Travis Hunter as more of a corner, right? Isn't that what Dan said? That he would play primarily corner? Or is that
I didn't see that one. That one I did not see.
Okay. Assuming that that's what he said, because I thought that's what I had seen somewhere, is that like they said that he was, was a terrific corner prospect that could play wide receiver, something along those lines. I can't remember exactly what the answer was, but if that's the case too, maybe look, let's really throw the tinfoil hats on, right? What if he's saying, yeah, we view him more as a corner because a wide receiver might be more valuable, and they want a team to say, well, look, we don't need a corner. We're not in need of that. And they let him slide down. But maybe Dan does seem as well. I just think there's so much smoke and mirrors, man. And you guys are right. I do agree with Edgar and Curtis. I hate to agree with Curtis today because of how all this is unfolded tonight. But I do agree with Edgar usually on a fundamental basis. So I do think that like Dan is much more of a I'm going to tell it like it is, even if I didn't mean to tell it like it is kind of guy. But I also think that they learned from mistakes last year. I think when they told Xavier Legette their actual plans, and poor, very happy, innocent, the world is awesome, Xavier Legette went out there and told everybody, you know what I mean? Like, I think maybe they were like, that might be the last time we tell guys our actual plans. We might go out there and do a whole ton of lip service next year.
And, maybe I'm reading it a little bit. Okay. But I also thought it was interesting, the detail Canales went into talking about Warren. And maybe he's just trying to sell this prospect to other teams, but like him talking about his tight end for a QB sneak, and like you can hand him the ball and he's more of a weapon than you might think. Like I just thought that was interesting. Like he didn't need to go in that great of detail. I honestly think Canales, maybe I'm just a sucker. Like Canales seems pretty high on this dude offensively. Almost to the point like how he viewed Brooks last year. That's the vibe I got. That's just my own personal opinion. But just the way he answered that question, I was just like, man, like he's really laying out kind of like what he would envision for this guy in his offense. Like, I don't know you need to feel that. And I thought, he did a little bit of that. So I just thought that was telling a little bit.
I thought Edgar did bring up a good point, though, about why we're all so sure that Jalen Walker is just going to be there at 8. If there are other people as high on Jalen Walker as some of these great analysts and stuff like that, like if some of these teams are that high and they miss out on Abdul Carter as well, but people see him as like this adjacent type of player to Abdul Carter, Panthers fans should maybe not get their hopes all the way up that Jalen Walker just falls to 8. I think that there's a real possibility that if he rocks out at his pro day and he nails interviews like I have heard that he is anticipated to do, this dude could be a top 5 pick And what we think about Jalen Walker won't really matter all that much. So I just wanted to bring that up because I haven't heard a whole lot of people talk about the possibility that Jalen's not even available at 8.
And that's a valid point. I've to a fault him that way too. Like, I think I don't know how you'd say it, but like, I think the top pick he goes is to the Carolina. Like, I don't see him going above there. But you're right. Like, maybe it's, maybe New England values a guy like that. Maybe Jacksonville values a guy like that.
The Jets on defense? I don't know.
So, no, that's a good point. Let's talk Canales. He mentioned, and I don't know if you guys saw this, I had posted or retweeted it, I think, last night. But Josina Anderson had an interview with Canales, and Canales was all over the hard eyes emoji for Mason Graham. I mean, it was like, if holy shit, if this guy falls, we are taking him. Like, he's a stud. I don't know the exact quotes, but he loved him.
She said something to his instant reaction where she was just like, "Tell me how you really feel."
Yeah.
She was like, "Yeah, no, you just told everyone how much you love this guy."
So let's talk about that for a minute. I mean, to me, it sounds like, I think this is anyone's perfect world, and everyone has talked about this. Like, if somehow Graham falls to them, they're going to take him. Do you guys see a scenario where that plays out at all? Like, is there a scenario where Mason is available at 8?
I personally don't. I think a lot of the league is the same as Dave Canales in regards to Mason Graham as a prospect. He is damn near perfect and is going to be a blue chip player for a team, as long as he stays healthy in moving forward in the NFL. I think there's a more likely possibility in Carolina's situation of them trading up to get Mason Graham than him falling to 8. It is what I would say in that situation.
Yeah.
Ricky?
The thing with Mason Graham is that all of a sudden he's getting that classic prospect fatigue or that out of sight, out of mind treatment that we see almost every pre-draft cycle. If Mason Graham had participated in the Senior Bowl, I think that people would be considering, is it Abdul Carter or Mason Graham for the number 1 pick as the best defender in this group? Mason Graham's film is outrageous. I know that there's a Twitter user who's a respected analyst and stuff who wanted to say that Mason Graham doesn't have a pro or power game, that everything is finesse and that there's no power moves, and that's concerning in the NFL to play in the interior. Is how does that work out? And that's troublesome. And he thinks that could be his demise type of thing. I don't know, man. I don't see it. I see a very good, very clean prospect outside of the length of his arms, which Braden Fisk, I think, kind of put a kibosh on that conversation to an extent about like how effective can you be as an interior defender without the requisite 33-inch arms. We don't know what Mason Graham will measure in at. He does look like he's a little bit under the threshold, in my opinion. I also don't think he's 6'3". I think he's going to measure in closer to 6'1.5". I think that his weight is probably going to be between that 310 to 320 range. That doesn't bother me all that much. Look at the way the guy moves. Look at what he does. Look at the disruption that he causes. He gets after the passer. He's a terrific run defender. And I think that when you talk about the versatility that everyone covets, dude can stand up and rush the passer at 7 tech. The dude can go all the way out at 9 wide if you want him to and not be completely lost out there. Or he could play shade technique right over the center's face and blow a play up. So I think that when you're looking at being creative on the defensive side of the football and you look at what the Philadelphia Eagles did, you listen to people wax poetically about the Kansas City Chiefs and their front. I don't understand how you look at a guy like Mason Graham and think that he shouldn't go before us. But I tell you, man, I ain't gonna look that gift horse in the mouth. If they want to let that stud fall to 8, I will get my jetpack on and fly to Green Bay within that 5-minute window that we have on the clock, and I'll turn that card in myself. I don't care who writes it. I'll write it on a sticky note on my way over there.
Wasn't there a report out there? Shoot, I'm going to start coughing. Excuse me. About
I
something
thought
like
you said something wildly different that was way worse.
But wasn't there a report out there about something on Mason Graham that came out? I'm not making that up. I
Oh,
thought
there's one on
something.
Mike Green. Mike Green.
No, I know that. I know Mike Green, but I thought there was something about Mason Graham that he was starting to slip a little bit. I know we had been talking on Twitter. There was maybe it wasn't. Maybe it was just his measurements.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I'm kind of with Edgar. I do think there's a possibility with him, and I think it's based off of the measurements. I don't like, as much as I hate that, I do think teams really value that. And Ricky mentioned it before. Like, some teams, they'll take you right off the board if you don't fit that scale. So I know it's always the shoe-in in everyone's mock draft that, Mason Graham to the Jaguars. Every time you see a mock, he's going there. Do we know that for sure? Like, do we really know that so I don't know. Maybe it's just me being optimistic that he falls, but like,
I
do think sometimes there is points where like everyone just fixates, and even with Carolina, with the Jalen Walker, you can say this, where everyone is just so fixated on him going here. It could be someone no one's talking about. And I think that happens more often than not, some in that top 10, and especially this year with how unpredictable this class is, and how it's probably more deeper in the day 2 picks of what you're going to get out of these guys. So I think this year there's even more unknown with this top 10. So anyway, I think there is a possibility. It might be small, but I do think there's a shot.
Yeah, I don't think you're wrong.
All right, Alex bought a bar? Okay.
Yeah, dude signed the lease today.
Yeah, bring it up. Let's cheers him.
I got him. Let's see it. The bar is called the Throwback in New York. Yep. So when the Panthers play the Jets, maybe the 3 of us stooges need to talk about going up there and doing a little bit of a pregame over at the Throwback, and then hitting the game up.
And free drinks the whole time, Alex, right? Thank you.
100%. 100%. Cheers, Alex. Congratulations, bud.
Cheers, man.
All right. I honestly, if that's kind of the end of my list. Oh, no, I do want to talk about something. Sorry. One more thing, because I do think this is important. And I wanted to pull this up, but maybe I'll just kind of run through it from our Twitter account. Let me see. Sorry, guys. Here we go. And that
make sure you disconnect the fax machine if you're trying to use your internet to present something. Go.
So Dan Morgan laid this out. I can't remember. I think it was Anish, the interview that Anish did with Panthers.com. Yeah. And he literally laid out traits of some of these guys. So I just kind of wanted to run through this. And I know, Ricky, between all 3 of us, you're the most versed with this draft and prospects. I've done a little bit. I know Bryson has done some, but going through these traits, any guys that come to mind, whether it's in free agency or in the draft, that, match what these traits that Dan Morgan's looking for. So interior D-line, obviously measurements, I think to me came out like they're important to them. I'm sure there's obviously going to be outliers. Be violent at the point of attack, strength to stack guys up, play gap and a half, even 2 gap. Any guys that come to mind when you're thinking about some of these traits that Dan Morgan idolizes in that position?
A whole lot, to be completely honest. To keep it simple, I'll stick to just draft prospects, because I think that that's the context of the conversation, right? Like of what we're looking at for like these positions. Interior D-line, I have a couple, man. And one of them is Darius Alexander, the guy that I literally was just profiling today on Draft Crush with Joe DeLeon of A to Z Sports. The height, length, be violent at the point of attack or contact. I don't think that there is a player outside of maybe Mason Graham, potentially Walter Nolan, that has a more violent hand strike than Darius Alexander. Strength to stack guys up 100%, play gap and a half, even 2 gap. Literally one of the parts of the film that I showed was Darius Alexander in a 2 gap role because of his 34-inch arms and his strength. It is a terrific element of his game. I also think that I would talk about Joshua Farmer there. I know that we did the mock draft and we were high on Joshua Farmer. That's a guy that I was high on the year prior. My feelings didn't change. They only grew for Joshua Farmer. I think he is absolutely outstanding. Both of those guys would be guys that I think are second-round candidates. That potentially Darius Alexander, I think you might have to move up to get him in the second round. Or if you were to trade back in the first and acquire an additional second, I think that could be one of those marks. Outside of them, I mean, Derek Harmon is also somebody that I think is viable there in that mold. It doesn't speak well, the height and length thing, to the prototypical nose tackle archetype that we've also seen them kind of show interest in. But like guys like Jamari Caldwell and CJ West, who they've met with, doesn't really meet up with some of that. But the strength to stack guys up, play gap and a half, even 2 gap, potentially, maybe some of them. Jordan Phillips, Joshua Farmer, Darius Alexander were the first 3 that came to mind there. Interior linebacker, I'm going to jump to real quick. That sounds a whole like Carson Schwessinger to me, to be completely honest. That's the UCLA linebacker with the smart and the instincts. He's got a really immediate quick trigger, terrific sideline to sideline speed. I would love to say that that's Jahad Campbell, but I actually think that Jahad Campbell is incredibly explosive, incredibly dynamic, and versatile with the pass rushing. But I don't think that necessarily his instincts are the first thing that jump off at you. I think he's learning that position still because he was an edge defender in high school. Jay Higgins is a guy who molds his game, watches a bunch of Luke Kuechly, and does all that kind of stuff, right? And says that Josie Jewell was a inspiration to him. That's the Iowa linebacker. I think that makes a lot of sense too, because that is a smart dude, plays instinctual, has good speed. Safety, man. I mean, look, dude, give me Andrew Makuba, give me Xavier Watts for that description. The thing with Xavier Watts is going to be, how does he athletically test at the combine, right? But what they don't question about Xavier Watts is his intelligence, his ability to play the position, and his instincts at the position. So I think he makes a ton of sense there. I think Billy Bowman probably makes some sense there. You talk about a later round guy. I like him. As for edge, the explosive athletic, be able to bend, get off the ball, win consistently in the league, I will tell you the one person that sounds the most to me is James Pierce. James Pierce's get off at the snap of the ball is almost unmatched. I think that him and Abdul Carter are extremely close, man. When you watch the film, that's what stands off. I think he needs some refinement. You worry about his frame. Is he going to be able to hold up at the point of attack? But his run technique and defense and instincts are terrific in that regard. Then I think you could look at like a Josiah Stewart, a Princely Umanamielen out of Ole Miss. Those guys are all things that I think could work. And you talk about bend. David Walker with his get off and his explosiveness and consistency to win. I would look at the pass rush rate, right? Like, see how often they're winning, even if it's not with the counting statistics. Look at the underlying analytics like Edgar likes to do. That would be the things that I would say.
Yeah, you talk about Ben. Mike Green comes to mind for me.
Yeah.
Violent at the point of attack, I would say Walter Nolan. That was the one thing I wrote on. That guy's got violent hands. Corner, our safety, I thought that was it was a big indictment on this last year. I don't know how many times we talked about on this podcast, how many times those guys were communicating and one guy thought someone was here and they weren't. It was just a total disaster. So I think that has been an indictment on last year. You guys need to know what the hell you're doing back there. And that linebacker, didn't that Jay Higgins, I thought he said today, I think Mike Case said that he had an informal interview with the Panthers.
Yeah, he did. And he's the one that had mentioned watching Luke Kuechly before playing games and that Josie Jewell is his guy. So, I mean, there is a lot of breadcrumbs and reading between tea leaves that would make Jay Higgins make a lot of sense. And the crazy thing is, man, like, I hate that I didn't get out all of my positional rankings before all of these interviews happened, because Jay Higgins I have as my linebacker 7. And if you look at any consensus rankings or any of these draft simulators and all that kind of stuff, he's way down there in like the 220 to 230 range, right? And I didn't have him that low. I actually like him a lot. I think he has terrific film. People will question how he could do in coverage and all that kind of stuff. Look, man, you're an instinctual linebacker. You're a downhill player. That's one of the first things I look for. Do you understand where you're supposed to be on the field? What's your read and react? How quick is your trigger? That guy's got it, man. And you see a lot of things that Edgar had said about Carson Schwessinger as well. Those are those guys, man, that when you watch them, linebackers, the instincts and the traits should pop. Those are the first things that I look for. Like it just needs to look really natural and fluid for them. If it looks like you're having to go through the motions, I'm a little bit less inclined to have a higher grade on you.
And you guys,
I will say this. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say you guys named a lot of players, but two other players that I think come to mind when specifically talking about D-line or edge, Shamar Stewart. I know we talked about him pretty in depth, during our draft that we did a couple weeks ago. And then Michael Williams, a big, edge, maybe D-end player out of Georgia. I think are two guys that both kind of fit that mold that Canales mentioned.
I think the thing that worries me with Michael is the get off. Like he is not explosive off the line of scrimmage. Like that's just not his thing. And he's got 3 years of tape because he played as a true freshman. It's just never been part of his game. Now he also said he played at 60% health this year, which I knew about. I knew he had the ankle injury. I'll give a little teaser here. The week after the combine, we have 2 guests coming on Draft Crush. One of them is actually a Georgia Bulldogs analyst, if you will. He does a lot of work exclusively for them and for the SEC, and he is going to come on and talk about all of the Georgia products and a ton of the SEC guys because he has done years and years of extensive work on. So that's something that we can get a pretty good perspective for the Carolina Panthers with.
Good get. That's awesome. I'm excited for that. Back to the Iowa for a second. Their players that come out of that school, they translate real well in the NFL too. That's another thing. And I know that's, you give or take with that, but that holds some weight because they do turn out some really good prospects out of that university. I also thought it was interesting, and Ricky, you talked about this a little bit, and we can end this. There was a lot of defensive players that talked about former Panthers and watching Julius Peppers and watching Luke Kuechly and I thought that was really interesting. I don't know if that's a sell job by them. Like, hey, I know Carolina needs defense. Here we are. But I was like, damn, dude, everyone's talking about Carolina. So
the wild part about that too is, Jalen Walker is where's he from? North Carolina. I believe he's Salisbury. Yeah. I believe he's Salisbury. And he's the one that talked about, growing up and being a fan of all these different players. Shamar Stewart is the one that said that Julius Peppers was a guy that he saw as a young player and was like, damn, that guy looks like me because of his size and frame. Hey, look, I'm not a Shamar Stewart hater, but I don't see Shamar Stewart and see Julius Peppers, right? Because Julius Peppers was a game wrecker. And Julius Peppers, he finished plays. Now, Shamar Stewart has all the athleticism in the world. He's got the build. If you want to bet on traits, who better to bet on than Shamar Stewart? But I don't know that I'm as inclined to bet on traits solely this season.
Totally agree with you. We're going to end it there. We appreciate everyone tuning in. Next week, we're going to do a post-combine mock draft. I think we're going to, this time around, feature a trade back. So we're going to play with trading back with that number 8 pick and then work through the draft that way. It'll solely be a mock draft. So stay tuned for that. It should be fun. And I know I only said we were going to only do 2, but that will be our second one. We'll do 1 then the week of the draft as we get closer here. But things are going to ramp up. Get ready. Free agency's coming up here. Teams are talking probably as we speak over scotch and cigars and figuring out where all these trades are happening and who wants out of all these teams. So everything is going to ramp up here over these next couple of weeks. So we appreciate everyone tuning in. Thank you to everyone, first timers who were on our live tonight. We do appreciate every single one of you. We appreciate all of our returners as well, our faithful fans, Carter, Alex, Edgar, Zach. I know I'm missing a bunch of people.
And if you are a first-time listener and you don't like or subscribe to the show yet, do us a favor. Click those quick little buttons real quick before you end out of this broadcast. Goes a long way of helping us get our show out there, and then we can reach more people so that we can talk to more people like Drip on our live broadcasts.
All right, you guys, have a good night. We'll see you next week.